All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Cornelius Jones back again with another video. And today we are discussing Bart Ehrman. You know Bart Ehrman, the world's most renowned skeptic of modern times. Well, Bart Ehrman can be found readily on different various YouTube videos. He's published some New York Times best-selling books as he deals with the New Testament and textual criticism and the historical Jesus. Well, Bart Ehrman says that the miracles that are attested to Jesus were later additions by the church that were added to Jesus much later, after Jesus died, hundreds of years later, in efforts to make Jesus seem like he was the Messiah. Okay, so that's what Bart Ehrman would say. And he's wrong. He's wrong, and I would like to make two very compelling arguments against that today. Well, the first argument stems with the question, where does Bart Ehrman's information come from? Bart Ehrman, just like the rest of us, were not alive in the first century. So where our information comes from, where our information derives as it relates to the information about the first century is very important. Well, I've been doing some digging and I've been doing some research, and I found where the information comes from. To be clear, the information I'm speaking of is this idea that the miracles that Jesus did were later additions that were made up about Jesus, spread by his followers in order to doctor him up, to make him seem like he was the Messiah or make him seem like he was God. Well, this idea comes from a man. It originated with a man named David Strauss. He was a German theologian, and he wrote and published a work in the 19th century. Specifically, we're talking about 1835. And the name of this work is called The Life of Jesus Critically Examined. And in this book, this is the publication where the idea first hits the scene, where he argues that the miracles in the New Testament were mythical additions by the early church in efforts to present Jesus as the true Messiah. This is a fact, people. 1835, the 19th century, is where this information originated from. Now, this can be proven wrong very simply. Find me a publication anytime prior to the 19th century stating that the miracles attested to Jesus were made up by his followers in the later years or centuries later or whatever. You will not find anybody saying that prior to 1835. It originated with David Strauss. This leaves a very important question. When it comes to gathering our sources for the historicity of Jesus Christ, why does it make sense to trust a 19th century source, which is hundreds of 1800 years, 1800 years away from the events that we're talking about, versus the sources that derived and originated out of antiquity, the earlier years, the first few centuries? Why does it make sense to trust the 19th century source over the sources of antiquity? Doesn't make sense to me, people. How do you make that make sense? You will not find any sources in antiquity claiming that the miracles that were attested to Jesus were made up. All right, so that's number one. Number two, this argument that Jesus' followers later added stories about his miracles does not account for the writings of Jesus' enemies that also attested to Jesus' miracles. You see, it wasn't just Jesus' followers that wrote about Jesus. In the toledot yeshu, which is a Jewish account of the life of Jesus, that is an account that is, I believe, is a 4th century source, but the traditions are derived out of the 1st century because there are so many corroborating details between the toledot yeshu and the Bible, which we know comes out of the 1st century. The toledot yeshu is a totally independent source. So the toledot yeshu, a Jewish account of the life of Jesus, also accounts for the miracles that Jesus did. However, the toledot yeshu explains that Jesus had some way of, they explained it that he attained these letters that were of the name of God or something like that, and it allowed him to do his miracles. They basically explained it away as magic, okay? But the toledot yeshu corroborates with the scriptures that Jesus did miracles. In both the toledot yeshu and in the Bible, Jesus is seen raising people from the dead. Why would the enemies of Jesus attest such a claim like that to Jesus unless it was true? So that's the two arguments. The argument in and of itself that that Jesus Christ's miracles were later added, later additions by the Christians, later, that idea, that entire idea derived out of the 18th century, the 19th century, 1835. No publications of any statements like that prior to 1835. So why should we trust it? Why is that more viable when it came that late? You see, people, you can't have it both ways. For those of you who want to hold, after knowing this idea comes out of 1835 and you still want to hold on to it, then how do the Gospels get criticized for being written in the 50s, 60s, 70s? How is that too late? How is 50, 60, 70 years after the events too late? But 1800 years after the events, oh no, that's not too late, as long as it favors what I like to hear. Can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways. 1800 years after the events compared to the sources of antiquity. If they're contradicting, I'll have to take the sources of antiquity. They were in better position to know the truth compared to some guy in the 18th century. In the 19th century. All right, so that's what I wanted to share. React with me in the comments. Let me know what you think. This is your boy Cornelius Jones. I'm signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.